Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Alright, hello. What is going on, Vancouver? My name is Sianquita, and today I'm joined with Clarke, my other
Warning,
Game Over,
incoming game over. Warning.
my other Game Over Vancouver host. And we had a banger of a game today. Canucks win 5-1 against the Anaheim Ducks. Lots of good things to talk about, finally. A few, I guess, some blunders, but you know what? It's not a hockey game without the highs and lows. Before we start, I want to give a shout out to the flagship show of the Game Over Network, Hyperdrive Hockey. Hyperdrive Hockey is all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. So in terms of a before game recap, Archie Baines was sent down to Abbotsford, and we called up Atu Ratu. Something that wasn't really surprising when we sent down Nils Aman. I remember looking at the practice lines yesterday and seeing Baines on the fourth line, and it didn't really look too good. And then they Tasha also put Suter on that second line with PD with Garland. How do you think Suter played on that line today, Zach?
I mean, overall, I do like Suter. I don't think that he's top six material necessarily. I didn't think that he looked bad tonight, but I didn't necessarily think that he made the case for himself to be in the top six full time. I also don't think that in an ideal Canucks roster he is meant to be in the top six full time. So I mean, overall, looked good, but still the best player on that line by a country mile was Connor Garland.
Fair. I agree on the Conor Garland part. I do somewhat agree on the Suter part because I think he has the IQ to be a top six forward, but he just doesn't have that skill just yet. Also, after a lot of back and forth, this was also Quinn Hughes' 300th assist. It kept going back and
That's
forth
huge.
between Quinn Hughes goal, Quinn Hughes assist, Quinn Hughes goal, went back to a PD goal, which was, you know what, well deserved. I think
The best outcome for all parties is
100%.
Pedersen getting the goal and Hughes getting the assist.
Like I never thought I'd be disappointed in seeing Quinn Hughes get a goal. But you know what? Here we are. And then one more thing, before I go into the game recap, is that Kevin Lankinen is 6-0-2, which all of the regulation losses that we've had so far has been with T-Loves in net. He has not lost in regulation. I think as soon as Demko's back, that tandem should hopefully be pretty good and have Demko get some load management before the season goes.
And
How do
that's
you think he
exactly
played?
why I like them. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly why I love Lankinen. Is that I think he's the perfect complement to Demko because what we need for Demko above anything else is he has to stay healthy. The only way he's going to stay healthy is if you are managing his load properly, which they didn't really do last year, and I think that's a big reason why we saw him get injured at the end of the season. But someone like Lankinen, I mean, honestly, I'm not making a serious suggestion that he should be the starter when Demko comes back, but he's played so well that it could at least be a conversation. He is so good. I think that it was one of those things that, you look at the advanced stats when he was Nashville's backup last year. He looked really good in a smaller sample size. It was a little bit of a bet that the Canucks made picking up Lankinen, but I think he's been their best offseason signing so far. And that's nothing shade against anyone else because we've had a lot of really good offseason additions, including Kiefer Connor McDavid Sherwood.
Dude, I can't wait to talk about Sherwood today, man. If you are in chat, I just want to say welcome, especially Casey Elizabeth. If you stick around, the entire second period of this stream will be about Kiefer Wayne Gretzky Sherwood. But let's get into a bit of game recap. So coming into this game, I was worried. I saw that first 5 minutes of the Canucks playing. I'm like, they look fatigued, even though they had games off. We gave up Aturatu's first shift. He gives up a penalty for chipping. Ducks unfortunately take advantage of that power play and Zellweger scores. But you know what? I think that goal that was given up on that power play kind of like slapped some sense into the Canucks, and it was like, you know what, we can't do this again. Um, and after the first power play miss, even though we got a PD chance, um, Besser, the Ducks left Besser open in the bumper, and he got his first goal, and we got a power play goal as well. Me personally saying on that first goal, I don't think that goal was a result of our power play being good. I think that was just I think that goal was just a result of the Ducks PK being bad. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna agree with you. I mean, in general, it's a tough game to judge because I think no one's going to disagree. This was the best hockey the Canucks have played this season. But, and you really have to take this into consideration, how much of that was the Canucks playing well, and how much of it was the fact that this is against one of the worst teams in the West right now. And that's no shit against Anaheim. They're in a rebuild period. That's fine. Teams go through them. But they are in a rebuild right now, and I think that a lot of what we saw tonight that was positive from Vancouver might not have happened against a serious, like a contender type team. So overall, I am very pleased with the win, 5-1. Not a whole lot to go wrong, but I definitely don't think that it was the statement game. Put it this way, I think the Canucks of last year might have won it 8 or 9-1.
Oh, I agree. I like, if you remember the game that happened on Saturday when we beat the Sharks 3-2. It's the same thing where it's like the Sharks are a rebuilding team. They're a young team. We shouldn't be needing to win that game
That one was
like
close.
last minute.
Like, it should
It
not
was
have been
way
that
too close. Like, I'm glad that the Canucks played the way that they did. But like, we can't we can't just keep cycling the puck with no shots in the power play. Thankfully, we got one. The Ducks essentially played how the Canucks power play works towards, in the fact that they weren't aggressive at all and they were just essentially staying in their box formation. But if you're just gonna stay in that formation, the Canucks are just gonna cycle the puck like always. But in this instance, they scored. Um, my first period thoughts. I think Carson Soucy, this game and like the last few games, hasn't been playing too well. He looks like a ghost of himself compared to last year, because last year he was the most consistent player on the team in my opinion. But this year a lot of his mess ups have been because of him, and it doesn't help that he's on the line with Myers, who he can have his own share of mess ups, but at the same time, like, you need someone to even it out, and that's what Soucy did last year. But I don't know. That
Yeah, no, I
nice.
actually think that, yeah, Soucy almost has Pettersson to thank in that he's not receiving that much blame for this season, because Pettersson takes so much of the criticism away from other players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
He's, quite frankly, he has been abysmal. I don't think there has been a redeeming part of his game through 10 games. I mean, there's a couple games here or there where he's been all right, but as you said, he was the epitome of consistency last year. Was a minute munching, a middle pair, bottom four defender who's, as you said, consistently giving you exactly what you expect, and he has not given you what you expect this year. It's been a lot of kind of uncharacteristic mistakes, especially in his own end. I mean, even this game, I mean, takes himself out of play for half a period by crashing into the boards, then first shift back on takes a penalty, and then wasn't great defensively. And I have no doubt in my mind that he will start to gel with Myers again. They'll pick it back up. But I do think there's a couple Canucks this season that really need to be thanking Pettersson for taking the criticism off of them, and Soucy's definitely one of them.
Very fair. I didn't think of it that way, where it's like PD's taking a lot of the blame. I was actually thinking DeBrusk is like, it should be.
That's who else was in my mind. DeBrusk, Soucy, and Seelovs all have just not been very good whatsoever. And like Lankinen helps with the Seelovs thing because you're not relying on him, so it doesn't matter if he's bad. And then Pettersson takes critique away from literally everyone else. So
fair, very, very fair. All good points. Yeah, going into the second period of the game, this was I guess like I don't want to say controversial, but the goal from Pedersen, which was originally a goal from Hughes, which was then switched into a tap in by Pedersen, switched back to a screen by Pedersen and a goal by Hughes, and then switched back, uh,
Five
switched
times,
back
which is
to the
crazy.
assist. I will say, like I know we were talking about this in our Discord chat earlier, which if you guys don't know, Game Over does have a Discord where we do talk about the game while it happens. Um, I think yeah, like I agree. I think this was PD's best game of the season. Like I don't he's not playing like cocky PD, like rookie PD, but he's finally starting to gel with the team where it's like, you know what? Like sure, he's getting paid 11 mil. But at the end of the day, if his teammates are also playing well, he's been complimenting them decently. Like he's not showing up in the stat sheet. I think like this might be an unpopular opinion because of the fact that PD should be our best player. Um, but the fact that he's able to set up multiple screens in the game, the fact that he's able to like make plays like that, which did result into a PD goal was nice. Obviously, this isn't the PD that we hope to see at the beginning of the season, but I think it's a good sign of things to come. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the typical negative Vancouver media stance on this and say that yeah, I agree, best game of the season overall. But the fact that his performance tonight was the best performance of the season through 11 games says enough about how he has been playing. Because he didn't play that well tonight. He played pretty well. He played, I would say, like an average top six forward. The thing is with Pedersen is he does make 11.6 million. There's no getting around that now. He should be at the very least a top 5 player on your team almost every single night. I mean, tonight he was indistinguishable from our forwards. Now, yes, he wasn't playing worse than any of them, which is a good start, but you have to be playing better. And I just thought there was a couple individual plays that made me wonder if he has kind of lost his confidence a little bit, which if it is the case, then hopefully 1 or 2 good games for him will help him get the confidence back, and he'll be right back to old PD because we know that he is a consistent franchise level player. I have no doubt to my mind he'll get back there whatsoever. But it is taking him a kind of concerning amount of time to get there because he did have some great plays tonight. The tip in, even if it wasn't his goal in the end, well, it was, but even if it wasn't, that screen was crucial in getting that goal, and he had a couple other good plays like that. But also just had then a few other plays that weren't what you want to see from him. So yeah, overall probably his best performance, but he needs to continue to build on that before I think we can say that we're happy with where he's at.
Fair. No, I agree 100%. I will say after that though, we had an absolute clapper from Kiefer Sherwood. Like moving on from I guess like the forwards doing bad, forwards doing
Best
good.
player in the game?
Best
Yep.
player of the game. I think
Yep.
best player. Okay, hot take.
Of
Best
the
forward
sport,
of
maybe.
best forward of the season so far.
Interesting. See,
Yeah.
here's the thing. You know what? I'm actually going to agree with you. I will play slight devil's advocate. Overall, I agree with you. If you're counting like expectations, yeah, best forward, undeniably. I think overall, I'll give it to Garland. But if you're saying the expectations of the player, he has smashed them. I mean, he's been so good. And again, talking consistency, it's every night. Kiefer Sherwood, out of nowhere. He'll show up on the stat sheet with a whole schwack of hits, positive analytics. He's a great net front driving presence. He is exactly the kind of player that is going to fit well in a Rick Tocchet system. And even better to look forward to is we know what kind of a player he is in the playoffs after seeing him against us last year. I've been so happy with Kiefer Sherwood this year. He's just been incredible. Sign him for a million years, please.
I'm very down. How long is this contract? Actually, you know what? Here, let's talk about this at the second period. We still have an entire third.
We have
period
so
to
much
talk about.
Kiefer Sherwood discussion in the future. We got to try to stay off of it for now.
Honestly, like I'm so tempted to change the title of the stream to Game Over Vancouver Glazes Kiefer Sherwood for 2 hours. But anyways, So we started the third period on the PK after a very weak slash from Besser. Like, sure, it was slash, but if this was like if this was the playoffs or if the ref was a bit more experienced, that's not pen. But anyways, as soon as we kill that though, Susie gets another penalty. I think it was just like the cherry on top to Susie's bad game. But afterwards though, um, we got Jake DeBrusque with the second goal of the season after another nice tip in by Bessie. I like I don't know if you watched the episode with me and Kaya, but I was telling Kaya that like screw overloading the offense, screw cycling the puck. Why not just play like rats and just get tip-ins and just crash the net every time? And you know what? It's been working this game.
Yeah.
Like for one, I just wanted to say the Brusque's reaction to getting the tip in, amazing. He like literally went on his knees and yelled. And I was like, you know what? This is the heart. This is the heart that he needs. Not the heart that he needs, but this is the heart he has towards the game, and the goal that he needed to really like get going. And I think like I've been, how do I say this? The Vancouver media, they've been dogging on DeBrusque still all season. Like I've seen Jake the Bust everywhere, but like you know what? It's 11 games into the season. Like it's gonna take a while before you can actually gel with your line mates. Like it took Garland and Joshua literally a fight in practice to get that going, and I think DeBrusque, after getting his second, is gonna be a big part of the Canucks moving forward. What do you think?
No, 100% actually. A producer at Sportsnet 650, Eddie Gregory, brought up a really interesting statistic at work the other day, which was that Jake DeBrusque, every year since he has joined the NHL, by far and away, not even close, his worst month is always October. Every season, without failure, he has a bad October. After that, you see an immediate ramp up in November, and then he stays roughly about the same, with usually November being one of his best months. We are now in November, and he probably had his best game. So, I don't know, maybe he just needs a month to figure it out. Honestly, if you're going to have a worst month, make it October. That's a great worst month to have. But I thought that was a really interesting stat, because if you look at it, he is so much worse at the start of the season that I have full expectations that through previous years, we've seen him consistently step it up from November and then for the rest of the season. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I thought he looked great tonight. There wasn't really any plays where I thought that he made any egregious errors. And honestly, that's what I look for more than I would rather have a player playing consistently pretty good than super flashy at one time and super egregious error the other time. And I think that DeBrusque was very consistent tonight, and I would love to see that continuing moving forward. I think that he brings a lot to our rush game, which is just huge for a team that was second last in rush chances last year.
I agree. And before I get into, I guess, the last goal, I think I'm just gonna start the second period now. And what's it called? And move on with the
It's
next.
Kiefer Shergood time.
It's Kiefer Sherwood time. But moving forward in this stream, I just wanted to say super quick, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It does help us grow as a company. And one thing that also helps us grow as a company is obviously sponsorships. Gotta talk about the Game Over Network, which is the network that we're currently on right now. If you enjoy our company and if you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we do have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you will find a link to our Patreon page, as well as a link through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we are aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we will gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. So going on to the last goal of the game, we got Kiefer Sherwood with assist onto a Danton Heinen goal, which he's just like, don't get me wrong, Heinen was in the right spot to get the goal, but you know what? To stay on brand, I'm gonna glaze Kiefer Sherwood.
That was all
all Sherwood, man. Like
100%.
to get the puck and to pass it in the slot with the pressure of two players on you, it was like I think.
Yeah, it was such an impressive reaction time to make that pass when you have such a good shooting chance and you still have that hockey IQ at that speed to be able to realize, oh, there's a better passing option here, even though you've got a grade A scoring chance. It just got, he's the best player. He's just the best.
Like actually, like we all know like how he is like on the defensive end, playing as, um, playing as that rat on the team, which I'm very glad to have on our team. Um, but what did you think of his offense tonight and his on puck play? Because him on the puck, I thought I was watching Connor Garland.
No, honestly, I love that comparison. I thought that he had a lot of shades of Garland to his game, where the ability to protect the puck was just incredible. And I mean, the amount of times we saw Anaheim Ducks players try and either fail, or of course there was that one of the third where he drew a penalty. Yeah, he was so hard to get the puck off tonight, and I think you make a really good point about the on puck play rather. Because we kind of know how good he is away from the puck. He's such a hard forechecker. He's a very talented skater as well. But it is his on puck that you're kind of wondering what his ceiling is offensively. And oh my goodness, it just looks amazing. And I think that if Rick Tocchet can have the same impact on Sherwood's game that he's been able to have with Garland and Höglander, and if he can turn Sherwood into an archetype of player like Garland and Höglander while keeping Sherwood's physicality, we're going to have a gem in Sherwood. And double checked, he's locked up for not just this year, but next year as well. So next year could be a year for the Canucks to, I don't necessarily want to say go all in, but if you look at the contract situation on the Canucks, the next year or two is definitely going to be the best window if you think that we have a contending team right now, which I like to think that we do.
Of course, no, like most definitely our window is now, because Casey Elizabeth with the Sherwood contract 2 years. Thank you for that info. I was actually just gonna look it up. Thank you, Zach, for letting me know. But yeah, definitely like our window is right now, because JT Miller is only gonna get older. Demko's contract is up in I think 2 years, 1 or 2 years I think, and then the year after we have to renew Quinn Hughes, who, with his play, I think he's gonna get paid more than PD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean 100%. There's no way he doesn't. I think it'll be honestly, it's so hard to predict, but I could see him getting 13 plus. I mean, he is a top 3 defenseman in the NHL, and he's not third. You can make an argument that he's number 1. Honestly, he won the Norris last year. I mean, Cale Makar, obviously, very hard to take him out of that number 1 spot, but he's a top 2 defender in the league, and he's the best defender the Canucks have ever had. It's going to be a huge contract. As you said, Miller not getting any younger. Demko needs a new deal soon as well. I believe and I believe his ends in the same year that Sherwood's does, funnily enough. So honestly, yeah, I think that next year will probably be our best chance, or possibly this year. But I am intrigued to see what the Canucks do. I realize that this is the Sherwood moment, but perhaps later in the show we'll talk about what potentially the Canucks might do to try to add, because I don't think that this is going to be the final Canucks roster once we get to the playoffs.
Oh, of course, 100%. Knowing our ownership, there's at least 2 more trades, one for a top 4D, and something else. But anyways,
yeah,
going into my favorite Kiefer Sherwood stats. Kiefer Sherwood currently has 69 hits.
Nice.
Like, that's a lot of hits. That's a nice number.
It's a lot of hits.
Wait, but like more seriousness though, he has 69 hits in 10 games played. The person that's second, obviously, is Jeremy Lauzon, but Jeremy Lauzon has played 12, and he only has 60 hits, which is 9 less than Kiefer Sherwood. And like, the fact that we have this guy on the team, man, is great. And time of the ice too, like Jeremy Lauzon is at a flat 222 minutes. Kiefer Sherwood 128.
Yeah. No, I mean, Nashville really let their best 2 players go to the Canucks this offseason.
100%. Like, I think, and I was looking up Kiefer Sherwood's number, because he has number 44. funny enough, you can't actually see it right now, but I'm just gonna show you a picture of it on my phone, just because if I move my camera, it's gonna freeze the camera. But so I just bought like a game worn Kyle Burrows jersey, which is also 44.
Oh, nice,
And
44.
I was debating on like de-stitching it to put Sherwood, which technically it's taboo. It's taboo in like the jersey collecting industry, just because it's game
Especially because
worn.
it's game worn.
Especially
Yeah.
because it's game worn, right? But I was like, you know what? We'll see. I'm probably gonna keep it as is, but so I did a little bit of research in terms of like who else wore the number 44 on the Canucks. Obviously, you have Todd Bertuzzi, like one of the hardest hitting Canucks, but everyone else.
I'll be honest,
are,
I think that's the only one I could name you.
okay, okay. I'll just say this: a lot of the other players that have worn 44 are big hitters. We have, I don't know if you remember Nolan Baumgartner, like
Yeah.
the classic AH like Manitoba Moose enforcer. Obviously Kyle Burrows, Eric Goodbranson.
Canucks,
Eh,
best contract ever.
Yep. And then we got guys like Dave Babbage as well, who like
Oh, well, I mean,
is
talk about huge hitters, yeah.
exactly. So I think, you know what, I'm just gonna call it out there. If Kiefer Sherwood had any other number, he wouldn't be playing this well. I'm just kidding.
It's all in the number. It's all in the number. Yeah, no, I mean Sherwood has been incredible. But I also think that part of it does go to the whole Canucks depth. I think that obviously that was something that I think was kind of expected of this team when you looked at the offseason maneuvers they made. Was you look at this team on paper and you think, wow, that bottom six is one of, if not arguably the best in the whole league, especially when Joshua's back.
Mm.
And so I think that Wall Sherwood does deserve a huge amount of credit, the lion's share of credit. I do also think that his line mates have been playing well too, and that does help.
Yeah, well, I'm actually curious to see what the lines are going to be like once Joshua's back. Just because, like, what my guess is that they're going to put PD in between Garland and Joshua. As much as Dak is the cookie cutter bot 6 forward, that's all Kiefer Sherwood's here now. And we have him to run that bot 6. So I think, like, I think the line that they ran with was Bluger, Sherwood, and it was Heinen, right?
It was Heinen,
Yeah, it was Heinen. I think like if you do honestly, I think Bluger, Sherwood, and then if you bring back Baines, like I know they're all left-handed, but if you want a team that will just crash the net and be really annoying for 15 minutes, I think that's the line.
Yeah, no, I do agree with Dakota. Probably going up to the first line alongside Garland and Pettersson. I will say, not right away. They're going to start him on likely the fourth line for the first couple of games he's back. But I think once he finds his footing again, and he strikes. We've never seen him come off an injury of this magnitude, but he does strike me as a player that will find his footing pretty quickly. And obviously, maybe I'll eat my words, but I have faith that he'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. And if him and Garland can reunite the chemistry they had, on top of how amazing Garland has been playing already this year, it's going to do two things. It's going to mean A, our depth can thrive even more, and B, Pettersson has to produce. If Garland is playing that well and Joshua can come back at even 80% of what he was last year, there's no excuses. You have to produce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was seeing people playing. I was seeing people talk about like, ooh, just put the low line back together and PD will produce. I'm like, that's not the point. He should be able to run his own line.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. When you pay a player 11.6 million, he should be elevating the players around him, not the other way around. It's easy to say, oh yeah, he had terrible line mates last season. If you are a top 10 player in this league, you could put Nathan McKinnon with a pair of AHLers. He's going to look like Nathan McKinnon. Pettersson has to be that. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as McKinnon, but he has to at least look like himself, no matter who's on his line. And especially if it's going to be players who are playing as well as Garland.
I agree. 100%. Nice. Perfect. That being said, I think we should move on to the third period today. Just because I kind of wanted to do something fun today. But before
I like you say that like we don't usually have fun on this show.
I know, no, we always have fun on this show. Yap attack. Hey, you know what? Yap attacks are the best attacks, and that is literally what the show is. Where we just get to yap about the Canucks all day and every day, and you know what? We appreciate it if you guys are here. Thank you once again. Moving on, to our next sponsor, which is once again going to be Game Over, but instead it will be the Game Over merch. So what better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of a retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, want to wear your love for goalies proudly, with our live or die by the goalie design, we have you covered. Designed by Brady from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on stream now and take a look through our apparel store, and help us rebuild local Canadian sports media. Okay, so cool. So
I'm excited for this. I was teased before the show about what you might have in store for this segment. So
yeah,
I'm eagerly anticipating.
So basically, at the beginning of the season, this was happening like all over Reddit on lots of different, not only hockey, but like in the NFL and the NBA, where it would go like day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 1, they would talk about like, just an example, who do you think is the best Canucks player? And then Reddit would go ahead and vote on who they thought was the best. Some of these I agree with. Some of them, I mean, most of them I agree with. Some of them are interesting, where it's like, right. I have the unpopular opinion, but yeah, honestly, some of them. So this will be the Canucks all time. So it's not talking about just the Canucks right now. So yeah, let's get started. So the first one is, who do you think is the most underrated Canuck of all time?
Ooh, that is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I do have some biases, and it also does depend kind of how you rate underrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't seen this poll, so I just want to say that I have no idea what these answers are. You could probably make an argument for someone from like the 80s teams or whatever that I just don't know well enough. So I am going to go with what I kind of know. Honestly, I'm so biased because he's my favorite Canuck of all time. I'm going to throw Brendan Morrison. I don't think that he gets anywhere near enough recognition. When you hear, people talk about Todd Bertuzzi all the time, 40-goal scorer. Obviously, Marcus Naslund is a legend of the Canucks. I see your jerseys in the background, and he needs no introduction. But the West Coast Express line, who's the most important position on a line? It's usually the center, and Brendan Morrison was the center of one of the best lines in Canucks history. And I feel like his name doesn't get mentioned that often. And I'm heavily biased. He's my favorite player, but that's who I'm going with.
I respect that answer. I think he'd be my number 2. My personal number 1 is Mason Raymond.
Interesting.
I think if Kessler didn't have Mason Raymond's speed, like,
he was so fast.
But if he didn't have a winger like Mason Raymond, he would be lagging behind by a lot. And I think me saying that says a lot, because Ryan Kessler is one of my favorite Canucks during that period. Like the 2011 Ryan Kessler was that Nashville? I think that was the Selke. Was that Selke Kessler?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
But he wouldn't be, like, without Mayray forechecking to get Kessler open. I don't think that line would have been well.
So what did the poll say though?
Jerky Loom, which
I knew it would be some old player. That's a fair answer, to be fair. He is another Canucks legend, and you want to talk about someone whose name just does not get mentioned. He didn't even cross my mind. So that's a pretty fair answer, actually. I can respect that.
Fair. Okay. Who do you think is the most overrated?
Now this is a tough one, because you're gonna look straight at a star, and you're gonna say they're overrated. Do you mind if you take first hit on this one? Because I think I have to think about my answer.
I might get a lot of hate, because I look back and I think, like, looking back, he was great. But at the time, I thought BXA was so overrated.
Interesting.
Alex,
See, one thing I will say about Bieksa is I don't think he was that good for that long. Like he fell off pretty quick and pretty hard, but during his time he was very, very good.
fair.
I I've got a couple names that I want to say that I'm just gonna get eviscerated if I say them. You know what? I'm just gonna come right out and say it. And I know how bad this is. I think that there's a few different names you can name. I think if you're looking at how they are treated, there's a chance, maybe not the most overrated, but I think Trevor Linden's a bit overrated in Vancouver history. I know, look at the jaw drop immediately. But if you consider how he is revered, and you look at his numbers, I mean he was a pretty good top 6 forward, but I think because of the leadership qualities he brought, people remember him as a better player than he was. Now I will say, to quickly defend myself and undo everything I just said, you can't measure leadership, and he was undoubtedly one of the best captains and leaders this team has ever had. But if you are just looking at on-ice skill and talent, I don't think he was necessarily as good as people remember him to be.
Oh, I have lots of opinions on that. Super quick though.
That's fair.
In chat, Casey Elizabeth says underrated. Sammy Salo. You know what? I agree with that.
It's tough because when he was not hurt, yes, I love that answer. But he was hurt
he was hurt all the time.
Much.
Dude, do you remember when the Canucks did super skills?
I went to a few of those. Yeah. He was so fast.
Yeah, so that's all that like back then. That's all that we could have afforded back then. So we looked forward to that every single year. And I don't remember a single super skills competition that the Canucks did without Sammy Salo winning hardest shot. So
yeah, he had
a cannon. Underrated, 100%. And then
I will quickly. I got to rebuttal this one.
Yeah.
Alex Burrows for overrated is in my mind pretty crazy. That being said, I said Trevor Linden, so I don't get to talk. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move on to the next question, but I will say about the Trevor Linden thing. I think, and what did the poll? Oh, so the poll said David Booth, which I think.
What?
Yeah.
That's a crazy answer.
I think
because to be overrated, you have to be rated.
Good. yeah.
Exactly. Like, what? That's an insane answer.
I think that was a cop-out answer. In my opinion.
It was totally a cop-out answer because the thing is, if you're gonna say overrated, you have to pick someone that's highly rated. I put my soul on the line with my answer. I might have threats outside my door any moment now. And they're gonna say David Booth. That's a coward's answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it. I was like, I think there was just a bunch of David Booth haters in chat. But yeah. So, third one is who's the best Canuck of all time?
Pavel Bure, no question.
Pavel Bure. Okay.
Yeah, no. Any other answer's wrong. Any other answer's just factually wrong.
Okay, so I was looking at this as the best Canuck instead of the best player. Best player, on God, Pavel Bure. But best Canuck, Henrik Sedin.
It depends. It depends what you mean by best. If you're saying best career as a Canuck, then I do think you have to go with Henrik Sedin.
Yeah.
But if you're saying the best, the most skilled player to ever suit them up, it's just not even close. Bure. I mean, he's one of the most skilled individual scorers of all time.
Fair.
What do the polls say?
Oh, they also said Henrik Sedin. That post, it was actually, it's exactly what we're discussing now. It was either Pavel Bure or Henrik Sedin. But, like, in my head, when I was answering it, I'm like, if someone's going to get a statue in front of Rogers Arena, it's not going to be Pavel Bure. It's going to be Henrik Sedin.
No, that's fair. I definitely do just think it's how you measure it. If it's the whole career, you have to go Henrik. And if you're not talking the whole career, then you have to go Pavel. And that's just quite simply, like, I don't think either of those are either... I don't even know who else you'd pick. I mean, you'd go Henrik over Daniel. And, I mean, who else would you even... Like, it's got to be one of those two. So, no, I agree with that. I think that's fair. That being said, I do think people actually forget just how unreal Pavel Bure was. He was the best goal scorer in the league for a time, And the Canucks haven't had a player that you can say is the best goal scorer in the league ever since or before.
Fair. I respect that. All right. So next one, worst top 6 player. So it's technically worst, but let's keep it to the top 6, just because I could literally pull
Okay.
like any bot 6 player and it'll be bad.
So worst top 6 player?
Yes. Okay. But I will say, out of fairness, you can't say Messier.
Oh, I wasn't going to actually.
Oh, interesting.
I was gonna say, if we're talking worst top 6 player, there was a full season, not just top 6, top line player for a full season, Anson Carter.
I was gonna say Antic Carter too. Yeah.
No way, really? That's so funny.
Like he was only good. He's only good because of the fact that he was on the Sedin's line during their breakout season.
Yeah, I do definitely think that he was probably overrated. I'm trying to think about who else might be even in that conversation for most overrated top 6 forward, because honestly most of them have either been pretty all right, or at least like you don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's got to be Anson Carter. But again, what do the polls say? I'm always intrigued.
Messier. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. That's a gimme.
I don't know. I don't think that's fair.
He wasn't even that bad when he was here. It was just all the stuff that came with him. Also, I feel the need to walk back my Trevor Linden take. I only said that because I'm trying to be brave and say, because to be overrated, you have to be highly rated. So I was trying to pick from the pool of Canucks legends.
Like there's so many players that you could have like copped out and said like, oh, Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
I'm not trying to cop out. I'm going for all the smoke.
Yeah. Hey, I said Bieksa, man. Like he's the guy that got us into the Stanley Cup Finals.
I won't lie to you. Best coach. Hang on. I don't know why I'm best. Well, and again, it depends what your metric of best coach is. If it's saying the best coach to have coached the Canucks, I think it's probably Roger Nielsen, Hall of Famer. Had not great stats with the Canucks, but of course invented the biggest trend in Canucks history in the white flag. Again, if you're gonna say best coach, I mean, there's a couple to pick from. Alain Vigneault's the obvious answer, but I do want to give a bit of a shout out to someone like Mark Crawford. I think would be up there too. Alain Vigneault had the benefit of having the best Canucks roster ever, and that's not all on coaching. That is a lot on like GM and roster management and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at win percentage, it's actually Rick Tocchet already. Plus, not to mention he won a Jack Adams, which only 2 other Canucks coaches have, in Pat Quinn and Alain Vigneault. So I think you probably have to go Alain Vigneault. But honestly, for the legacy that he left behind, I almost want to go Roger Nielsen, even though his best coaching days were definitely not with Vancouver.
Okay, so the answer was actually Pat Quinn. Because he coached the Canucks during the 94 run. But I actually think it's Tocchet. Apologies, Zach. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
I can hear you a little bit.
It's
coming through quite delayed.
Fair.
Yeah. And that happens, of course. Anyone who's watching from Vancouver knows just how windy and rainy it is. But we have gotten through a fair bit of the stream, so if we do need to end, I get it if it's a little too laggy.
It's all good. Hey, here.
That does happen.
Well, let's do one more and then take questions from chat and see where it goes.
Sounds good. It's a little better now. Yeah. It had a bad sport, but I can see you better now. I can hear you better now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the last one, who do you think? Let's see. Who do you think had the best hair?
Wow. Okay, that's a tough question. The best hair. Is this just head hair, or are we counting facial hair too?
We can count facial hair.
I might almost go with Tiger Williams because he had one of the most iconic looks of all time. Not to mention being the leader in PIMS for all time. but he had a very iconic look. I'm actually I'm struggling to picture who had really good hair for us. Who's your pick for this?
Brent Sopel.
I could not tell you what he looks like. Let me look him up.
Brent Sopel had the best flow. It was like,
oh, you're not kidding. That's some
like
nice hair.
He looks like he could have been in Twilight.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's not even
that's
like,
that's a good flow.
it's not even a hockey flow. It's just a nice flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I think that I could agree with that for
Yeah.
sure. Real quick, I'll just quickly say to anyone watching, if you guys do have any questions about this game, anything to do with the Canucks going forward, drop them in the chat now because we'll answer them at the end of the show, which won't be too much longer. But I'm gonna throw a question to you, Mark, which is, I think it's no secret the Canucks are going to be adding pieces to this team. And I think it's also no secret that the biggest thing that the Canucks need right now is a major defenseman, not someone that's a bottom pairing guy, someone that can play in the top four and someone that you can trust in the top four. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas of who you'd like to see the Canucks trying to pursue.
Ooh, so I don't know if this is going to work out cap wise, but I kind of want more experience coming in. I was thinking Eric Carlson of the Penguins.
Oh wow. Yeah, this is an awesome take. I love this
Like
take.
I think
That's insane, and I am so here for it.
because hear me out. Like if you're gonna look at the obvious, he is a right-handed defenseman, and he's Swedish.
Yep.
I'm just kidding.
Yep.
But
Nope.
like if you want someone that has the grit, like if you've seen him on San Jose, like he has, like, I think he was like the spine of that team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
undeniably. I will say, and I say this as one of the biggest Eric Carlson fans of all time. I am a big Ottawa fan. I make no mistake about that. I love Ottawa, and Carlson was unbelievable on that team. He is unfortunately a shade of what he once was. He is one of, if not the worst defenseman in the entire league when it comes to defense, which is a big part of being a defenseman. And I think that he thrives in an environment like San Jose, where he is the guy for them, and he can be that top power play, puck moving guy. And I think that the only reason I'm going to totally veto the idea of Carlson, in my opinion, is that what are you going to take Quinn Hughes off power play one? No. And if you're not going to give Eric Carlson power play one, why are you having Eric Carlson on your team? Because like his offense is what he brings to the team. But I will say I love that shout. I could have probably listed 50 defensemen in the league that I thought you were gonna say before you said Eric Carlson. I love that take.
If I were to play GM, if I was Patrick Alvine, I would give the Penguins a call and be like, hey, if you look at your roster,
You know he has them on speed dial.
Oh, 100%. But it's like you already know that he's gonna be like, okay, look at your roster right now. Do you really think Crosby has a chance to win another Stanley Cup, or do you start to rebuild and hopefully get a retooled team in 3-4 years time? Because if so, why not trade Carlson for some picks, retain his contract, because I just looked it up, it's until 2027. Like, be like, hey, here's a homie discount, give us a 30-40% retained salary.
I mean, if they want to trade him, I think they're going to have to retain 50%.
Yeah.
His value is so depreciated right now. He has been not that good in Pittsburgh. He was okay last year. And God, I really wanted it to work out. I love Crosby. I love Carlson. I would love to see them make one final push. They just don't have it in them. They're all starting to slow down a little bit. It's crazy to see, and I hate to see it as a Canadian, how not great Crosby has been this year. I think we're finally starting to see age somewhat catch up to the greatest player that we have ever been able to witness, which is so sad to see. It happens to everyone. No one can escape it. It's really sad to see, but I do think that Carlson, I don't necessarily think he'd be great on the Canucks, but I think it'd be interesting to see if he gets moved. Because I don't think there's any point in them keeping him. But with his value as it is right now on his contract, I don't know what they'd honestly get for him, because even if they retain 50%, if they retain 50%, it's $5 million, which is like, even then, with how bad
It's
he is
still a
defensively,
lot.
probably
Yeah.
still not a great contract. So I don't even know what they'd really get for him. But I guess at least for a buying team, he'll probably be cheap. My ideal goal for the Canucks to pursue in terms of a defenseman would be Rasmus Andersson for Calgary. The only issues with that is going to be, I don't think people realize just how expensive Rasmus Andersson is going to be for two reasons. A, he has not just his deal's not expiring this year; it's next year as well, and it is one of the best defenseman contracts in the league. It's less than $5 million; it's 4.6, I think, for a legitimate top pairing guy who has proven without a shadow of a doubt he can play over 20 minutes a night against the best players in the league and perform well. He is going to cost so much, and the other thing that doesn't help the Canucks is, well, two things. A, how weak the defenseman market is. If you look at defensemen that are on expiring contracts, there's very few. And how many teams that are in playoff positions that are going to be wanting to upgrade that top four position. Both of those things really help Calgary and Rasmus Andersson. I think he is going to cost the equivalent of, whether this is picks or prospects with the same amount of value, I think he is going to take over 2 firsts. And I'm pretty confident about that. He is so good. It's such a good deal. And there's so few defenseman market that it's going to be, his cost is just so elevated. That being said, I think by far and away he'd be the best option for Vancouver. He has a clear-cut fit on that right side. And he's so proven. And I think that's what the Canucks need, is someone that's proven that they can do what they do. I'm going to pose another question to you, however, is a name that has been circulating the rumor mill, especially as of today, and who has been linked to the Canucks in the past, mind you, played junior for 4 years here in Vancouver, Bowen Byram. He hasn't really panned out that well in Buffalo. He is on an expiring contract, is on the right side. Now, Elliot Friedman said that they're not ready to trade him just yet, but that they're listening to offers. So I wonder, A, what it would take to get a player like Byram, and B, whether or not you think that he is actually proven enough to be that top 4 guy for the Canucks.
Great question. I think if we get Byram onto the Canucks, because how old is he right now?
I couldn't tell you. This is a complete guess. I'm going to say 26.
He's 23. He's 23.
Wow. He's young.
Wow. I
guess that's right, because he came into the league when he was 19 and then, or 20, and then did 3 years with Colorado. Got traded last year. So
yeah, I think there's a part of me that I feel like, for one, especially since he's coming from what's it called? Actually, wait, no, he played for Colorado before, didn't he?
Yeah, he won a couple.
He's won a couple. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say I wanted someone with a bit more experience. Hence why I said Erik Karlsson. But I don't have as strong of an opinion. I haven't really thought about it as much. I think it would be nice for him to play with the better defenseman from the 2018 draft. But I feel like the thing is, though, if you put, what do you think his line is going to be? Do you think it's going to be Susie or Brandstrom?
That's a good question. I think it would be Susie, just because Bowen Byram is known as a little bit more of a puck mover. But that's another reason that I do think that he would be an interesting target for Vancouver, is because then you do have someone that you can rely on as a legitimately talented puck mover on every pairing. You've got Hughes on the top pair, Byram on the second pair, and Brandstrom on the third pair. And I think that would be nice. That being said, what we're hearing is that he really wants an opportunity to be kind of like a top pairing defenseman, which obviously he can't get in Vancouver. And while he does have experience, that Colorado run, he was very sheltered. Like, that top pair of Makar and Taves played the lion's share of minutes and against the top opposition. So he has the experience, but I'm still not 100% sold on him, especially with how not great he's been in Buffalo, where he's getting an opportunity to take on a little bit harder competition and be that guy a little bit more. he hasn't necessarily proven that he can do it yet. But at the same time, there's so few options on the defense market that are of that high enough quality, like an Anderson, like a Byram, that it does kind of limit your options if you want a heavy hitter. Unless you're going to go after a guy with turn, but then that comes with risks and would cost more too.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question for you. Who would you be okay with trading away for one of them?
So that's a really good question because I think especially when you look at it depends who you're trading for. So someone like Byram is tough to trade for because what the last thing Buffalo needs is more picks and prospects. They have enough picks and prospects to I don't know. They've got too many is where I'm going with this. They need an established player. And who are you going to get rid of from the Canucks that is A, good enough to actually get a Byram deal done, and B, isn't going to sewer the Canucks? I mean, is Garland, you'd have to send Garland an ad, and that already doesn't feel great. You could send Brock Besser, and I know that this fan base doesn't want to see him traded, but if the Canucks don't think they're going to re-sign him, this is the year to trade him. But again, oh man, I don't want to trade Besser. It's a tough question. And that's what I think makes Byram hard. And then even someone like Anderson, where Calgary probably does want futures, picks, prospects, etc. He's going to be so expensive that you're looking at like Lekaramaki and probably more. And then that's a tough one to send away as well, with just how unbelievable Lekaramaki's played. He's probably, actually not probably, I will bet anything you care to name, we see Lekaramaki on the Vancouver Canucks this year.
He's going to get called up this year.
Out in Abbotsford. He has been incredible. He's nearly point per game. And he's been unreal on the score sheet, mostly goals. He is averaging, you ready for this, 6 shots on goal a game. That's incredible.
That's great.
That's an unbelievable statistic. And that's not 6 shot attempts. That's 6 shots that get to the goaltender. He's been so good. And so are you really going to trade your team's best prospect? Maybe. That's what teams in all-in situations do. And so I do think there is a world where you do that. But then you look at the perennial contenders, the ones that can get cup after cup and keep winning. Well, you need guys like Lekaramaki coming up through the system. So it's tough. It's one of those things where you look at your organization and you say, I don't want to get rid of any of this. But teams don't just give away players for free. So you have to get rid of some of it. So I would feel best about Tom Willander and adding. I know Willander's having a great season in Boston this year. He does look like he's going to be an NHLer, but I think out of him and Lekaramaki has the higher ceiling for sure. So I'd rather trade someone like Willander. But even then, like Willander and a first, that's a steep price to pay, and even that might not be enough to get it done for a legitimate. I don't think that's enough,
actually. I think even though he did get his contract extended, like, I feel like Höglander could be on the market. Just purely not so much on the trade block, but like if you need names to fill out a trade, I think Höglander would be number 1. Unfortunately, I think Garland would be number 2. Because as much as like Garland's been playing so well, he at the end of the day, I think it's a sell high. Unless he could stay consistent as a top 6 forward, because he's been playing on our third checking line. Even because like at least if you trade away Garland, it gives us more cap space for Besser on the offseason.
Yes. Well, depending on who you bring in.
Exactly. Like depending on who we bring in, but what's it called? I feel like I don't want any of the Canucks assets to be touched.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it's tough when you really like a team and when players are playing well, you really don't want to trade them. But you make a really good point about selling high on Garland. It's hard to see how he can elevate his game any further. He has been so good. And it's just, do you think he can do this through 82 games and the playoffs? I'm not saying that I think he can't, but I am saying that if he does, it'll be the first time he's ever done that in his career. He's been a pretty consistent 50-ish point guy his whole career. And right now he's playing a lot better than that. And so I kind of agree on the sell high thing, especially if you retain, he could have a lot of value right now. But you're right, it's tough to part ways with him. Höglander too, I'd feel a little better about Höglander just because I don't necessarily see a clear path to him becoming a top 6 guy for us. I think he could probably achieve that on another team. But right now with players coming up like Lekaramaki, who looks like he'll be ready for a full-time job next year, and you're not going to play a player with his profile outside of the top 6. It does make it difficult to see where Höglander will play. Now, given his contract and his playing style, he does make a very good bottom 6 guy. But you're right that you could trade a bottom 6 guy for a higher impact player. So I don't hate the idea of trading Höglander or Garland. Obviously, it's got to be for the right guy with the right fit on the right contract. But no, you make a good point.
Yeah, it's fair. I will say, I feel like the Canucks are gonna make a big trade during the trade deadline, because based on how our management has been handling our finances, I saw on Twitter we're projected to have 5.2 mil in cap space.
Yeah, by the deadline,
So
I saw that 5.1.5, I think.
And that's basically a 50% retained Eric Carlson. So I was kidding, but yeah, man, it's I didn't want anyone from the Canucks last year to be traded, even though Kuzmenko made sense to trade away. Like he was just one of those players that personality wise, like you love to have for the Canucks. I feel like even though if you trade Höglander, at the end of the day, you know that he's really close friends with PD, and hopefully trading Höglander, if you trade Höglander, it doesn't affect PD's mental again.
Yes, no, I agree with that point. Kuzmenko is an interesting. I think he'll always almost be a what if player for the Canucks because the chemistry between him and Pettersson at times was undeniable. There's no way he ever would have worked with Rick Tocchet. I think with a different coach, funnily enough, I think with Bruce Boudreau, who's very much a loose style players coach, Kuzmenko thrives in that kind of environment. But in a hardworking systems coach like Tocchet or before him like Travis Green, he would just never, ever be able to find a fit. And we're seeing that in Calgary. He's been getting benched, even though he has been racking up the score sheet. I think he's a very much kind of an empty points player. Yeah, I don't hate that trade, but it is always kind of a what if. It's crazy that he was 39 goals and then out the next season.
Yeah, crazy. I fully agree with him being a Bruce Boudreau player, where like you give him the freedom to not need to back check. Like he's gonna thrive, camping by the goal and getting 39 goals. Well, we possibly wait for questions from chat.
Let's remind people if they have any questions. Now, I think we are about to get to the question segment. So if anyone has any questions about the Canucks in any way, whether it was tonight's game 5-1 win versus Anaheim, or the future, we'd love to give our best responses.
Okay. Thank you for that, Zach. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Oh shoot, I forgot what question I was gonna ask you.
I threw you off with my pandering to the audience.
Hey man, that's okay.
I'll do it again.
Yeah, please do. Shoot, what was I gonna say? Dang. It was something about signings. Oh, okay.
So,
Actually, I do remember it. Okay, do you think we signed Brock Besser in the off season? Because I think that's a narrative that hasn't been talked about yet. But like, this is.
I definitely don't think
year.
we'll sign him in the regular season. I'll say that. I think that this playoffs is going to be a huge deal breaker for Brock Besser. Last year in the playoffs, he was probably that's a tough one of, if not our best forward. He was really, really good. But you got to do it again. And same with the regular season. If it's your first time hitting these sort of milestones, you got to do it again. You know, and I'm not saying he needs to get 40 goals, but let's see him get 30 plus again. And in the playoffs, he needs to show that he can be that same two-way, really good player. Because skating's never been a huge part of his game, but in the playoffs, everything else was pretty much perfect. And so if he can do that again throughout this season and the playoffs, then I do think the Canucks will do everything they can to sign him. That being said, it's going to be a pricey ticket. Even if he does take a hometown discount, it's not going to be that much. It's going to be a big contract. So we'll see. I think that the Canucks could sign him in the offseason. It's tough. If they let him walk, it's going to be a decision that's talked about for 20 years. You know what I mean? It'll be talked about for so long. But I also think it is a little bit risky to sign him because then you got a lot of money tied up. We're going to become the West Coast Toronto Maple Leafs where you've got 50% of your cap tied up with 4 guys. hasn't worked for them.
No, it's very fair. Like I completely agree. I doubt Besser gets his contract extended in the regular season. I kind of wish this the situation that we have with the Besser contract was what we had with PD, where like we let it go until the off season and have the price like play there. Um, but yeah, like I don't see them re-signing Besser unless we trade away Garland specifically, because like if we let Besser walk, I can see Garland playing alongside Miller.
See, that's an interesting thought. My only counter to that would be I think that if Garland was a good line fit on that line, would have seen it already.
Hmm.
Just because they've been on there for so long, we've tried so many different line combinations, and I don't think that Garland necessarily. I just think that with Garland, like he's so good with Joshua, he seems to be so good with players that kind of play like his style. I don't necessarily know that he'd be that. Well, I don't know. I'd be down to see it. Garland's been so good. I think he can play with anyone and be great. So.
Yeah. Like I what's it called? Uh right before we get to a question from chat, I just want to quickly say regarding the right wing situation that we have. We have four right wingers that are all effectively snipers. Like we have Besser, we have Garland, we have Sprong, and we have Lakirimaki. So
I don't know that I would classify Garland as sniper. The other three I agree with, though.
yeah, fair. You know what? You could classify Garland more as like a two-way forward, but like, Garland you can see as like a not as good of a shooter, but as like grittier version of Besser. But I guess like if you look towards that right wing depth, I feel like if we let Besser walk, we let Lakirimaki prove himself on the main roster.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest argument for letting Besser walk is that then Lekaramaki has a kind of proven position that he can slot right in on. My counter to that would be how amazing could the Swedish chemistry be between Pettersson and Lekaramaki? You've got the playmaker alongside one of the best sniper prospects in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think there's honestly, I have heard good arguments for keeping Besser. I've heard good arguments for trading him. For me, my mind is not going to be made up until I see how he does this season, and then especially in the playoffs.
Perfect. Great answer. All right. Casey Elizabeth says, "Who's the best Canucks goalie of all time?" I think I speak for Zach as well. I think we're too young to see Kirk McLean play. And we grew up in the Luongo era. And as much as like Luongo was a scapegoat for us, he bailed us out so many times.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I have heard a lot of really good arguments for kind of slandering Luongo, as it were. Um, you know, I think that some of them are fair. I will say I do think he is maybe I should have gone with him for my overrated pick. I think he's slightly overrated. Um, but I do also think that he is the best goaltender of all time, mostly just because who else would it be? McLean was unbelievable in that 1994 run. If you look at his stats in the playoffs, he was incredible, came up huge with big saves. But his actual career as a Canuck he was a good goalie, but he wasn't Luongo good. Luongo was a top 5 goaltender in the league for basically his entire career with the Canucks, and there were seasons where he was top 2 probably. So I just don't know who else you could really go with other than Luongo. I was gonna say you could try and argue for Thatcher Demko because he's been so good as a Canuck, but he just hasn't been here for long enough to be in that conversation just yet. Although that being said, he has now officially come as close to a Vezina as Luongo did. So
true. And honestly, like Demko's still he's still in his late 20s. He could very well be our best goalie. Like he has the potential to be our best goalie if we win the Stanley Cup, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah. I think that's a really good point, and I think that also he is the best goaltender we've ever had in terms of high danger saves that no one has a right to be making. I think Demko might be the best goaltender we've ever had. He's crazy in high danger scenarios. He's a highlight reel goaltender. But I mean, consistency, you still probably got to give it to Luongo, even though I guess, maybe not all the time in the playoffs.
Fair. Very fair. Very, very, very fair. Perfect. I think I think that's all for questions. Was there anything else that you want to bring up, Zach, before we end off today?
I guess super briefly, why don't we talk about the Canucks' upcoming schedule? So obviously next game is against the LA Kings, and I'm excited to say that I will be hosting that one alongside my very close friend and BCHL color commentator Liam Higgs will be joining me for that. Big Kings fan. Then the Canucks play the Oilers, and I want to say that these next few games, and then the Flames. So it's 3 divisional matches in a row, and that's after 2 divisional matches. So it's a 5 divisional matches in a row for the Canucks. So these are huge matchups. Now, San Jose and Anaheim, kind of expected wins. Canucks got them both. Okay, that's good. But the Kings, the Oilers, and the Flames will all be tests. And I think that the Canucks, this is where we're really going to see what the Canucks are made of. You know, it's been a shaky start through 10 games. The record is actually pretty good for Vancouver. But I think that there is a lot of fair critique about the on-ice play. And it's going to be the Kings, Oilers, and Flames where the Canucks have to prove themselves. Are they a good enough team to be able to beat divisional rivals who are their main competition? I mean, the Kings and the Oilers especially. Oilers are down McDavid. Kings are down Drew Doughty. These are teams that, again, on paper, you should be beating. The Canucks aren't going to be down anyone major. Dakota Joshua and Demko, I guess. But with how good Lankin is playing, Demko's not an excuse. So I really want to see the Canucks play well. I'm not saying that they have to win all 3 of those games. I would rather see them play well in 3 losses than play terribly in three wins where they impossibly get the win. I need to see them playing well.
You have a great point about the Kings and the Oilers games coming up, where like if they act complacent, we're like, ooh, we're the Vancouver Canucks, we're expected to win the Stanley Cup. They're gonna get steamrolled by the Kings and the Oilers. Like it happened in the first game of the season when we went against the Flames. We had the lead and immediately became complacent and stopped playing hockey. Especially since the Oilers and the Flames games are also at home. We need these games to energize the team up again. And yeah, honestly, like looking at the schedule right now, super exciting. It's a
There's a lot of fun hockey.
five game homestand before. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's me exhausting my talking points. So it's been a pleasure joining you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to anyone else still in chats, I want to say once again, thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Sianquita, joined with Zach Clarke. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to follow us not only on the Game Over Vancouver YouTube channel, but as well as on all of our social medias. Hope to see you soon. Take care.